We are Comics Untapped.
Alright guys, hi there, it's nice to meet you. My name is Issa, and as a profession I do what I love, and that's media production.
And I'm Shamika, home educator to 4 children. I love to inspire, uplift and educate people.
Comics Untapped is a platform where we bring to light obscure elements of comics. Guys, in today's episode, we're going to be introducing you to some characters that were created up to 50 years ago and they're relatively unknown. The main reason being they're not promoted in mainstream media much.
Another thing we want to do is encourage you guys to research some of these characters because it's important that people of colour are represented in the things we consume. Black history goes back to the beginning of time, so it's important to see these images and hear these voices. It's also important because seeing these images and hearing these voices make it a reality in the minds of those who the character represents.
We want to encourage you to use the full scope of your imagination because we're going to introduce you to some original black characters, as well as some that are traditionally known to be white. And another important thing we're going to do today is speak to you about why we think comics are so important.
So guys, the first thing we want to talk to you about is why are comics so important? In media, there's so many things vying for our attention. You know, it's movies, cinema, gaming, streaming, even game consoles are getting more powerful. So why do we think that comics hold the #1 place when it comes to media? In moving images, your imagination is quashed because the creator of the film or whatever product it is, their ideas are being put before you. Whereas in still images, it allows you to be able to use your own creativity and own imagination. That's why they say movies never do books or comics justice.
Yes guys, so comics are the conception of all of the films that we see in movies that involve superheroes, all of the things we see on streaming services and stuff. The only problem with those is they always limit what they show because they have to keep the running time low, which is really annoying because you don't get to see the proper full story. Yeah, and comics allow you to go into a different reality. You know, it's when you're using your own imagination, you decide that reality a lot of the time because it's not there. As well as the fact that the story is picture based, the words are kind of just there to help you along, but you've got the pictures doing most of the talking. And finally, they can help you read the details of a drawing and help you become a better artist.
So guys, here is a brief history of black comic characters before Black Panther. Well, black people, as we know, have been in comics since their inception, but the way they have been portrayed from the beginning till now, just mainly in the beginning, have faced many obstacles. One, like some of those things are like stereotypes. So they've been portrayed stereotypically as being a sidekick, you know, wearing animal skins, being illiterate, and just, you know, not having their own path, just following somebody else.
Yeah, that was, you see that a lot in the older comic books, that you see that quite often. And the perfect example, all right, for us to talk to you about is a comic called Jungle Action. Alright, now Jungle Action, I think it was around like 1954. It had these 3 characters. It had Lozar, Jan of the Jungle and Leopard Girl. Alright, and all of them were white, and they were in the jungle, like
saving all the black people
basically
in Africa.
Yeah, so all the tribes people and stuff, they were just going around doing that. Now, what ended up happening was after the first volume, they had that run, that came and went. There was a period of time in between to the second volume. Now, in that period of time, there was a guy who was proofreading a lot of Marvel stuff.
Yeah, he's the guy who was saying it's outdated, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And he basically said, look, guys, this isn't right. Yeah, we've got these white protagonists in the jungle, and times have changed.
It was just outdated.
Yeah.
You know, those were the thinking of back then. You know, there was a bit of uproar. People were saying, "What's this?" Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for the second volume, they introduced Black Panther. You know, now he's big. What were you gonna say? We
all have come to love Black Panther.
Yes, exactly.
Mainly because that's all most people know, but yeah.
Yeah, he's a fully rounded character. Yeah. Like, everything is explained. He's a king of his nation. He's clever. He's powerful. He's got history. So that's a properly rounded character who
and he stands on his own. He's not behind somebody, you know what I mean? He hasn't given up his life. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So yeah. So that was in the 1950s. In the 1930s, there was a comic called Mandrake the Magician.
Yeah.
Alright. And he had an assistant.
Yeah. Called Lothar.
Yeah?
Yes. And Lothar was an African prince. Can you imagine? African prince. He was due to be king, and he gave it. He's from the Seven Nations, which is a tribe, is a group of different nations in Africa.
Yeah.
And he gave it up to be a sidekick. To be a sidekick.
Who would do that?
Nobody would do that. But that's how it was written. It was written in a time where the people who wrote it, that was the way that they saw people of colour. So yeah, he gave up all his kingdom to be a sidekick to Mandrake, and he wasn't even represented well because he wore animal skins, and what else? He
was illiterate.
Yeah. He was the muscle, and Mandrake was the brain. Mandrake's white, he was the brain, and Lothar is black, and he was the brawn. Do you know what I mean?
But he had no. It's really just crazy. He didn't speak properly. He spoke like how we imagine cavemen spoke.
Yeah, he was illiterate.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
He was created illiterate. But that didn't last. It lasted for a while. But as time changed and as people realised that that's not reality, they had to change the character with the time. Began to wear suits, and he was speaking proper English.
Another thing that it was really great about this character is even more progression now. In the 80s, Mandrake the Magician, Lothar, and I think it was 3 or 4 other characters, they all
teamed up.
Marvel teamed them up, and they called them Defenders of the Earth. And they had an animated series which used to come on television in the United States.
And they were all characters in their own right. So Lothar was part of it, and so was Mandrake the Magician. But Lothar was not his sidekick.
They were all independent. They all had their own storylines, and when they got together, they could defend the whole Earth. So as part of this presentation, we've also given you an answer sheet, which has got all these questions on it. Now it's either a piece of paper, or it's an online document that you can fill out on your laptop or your tablet or something. So, here's the question.
Now the first question is, why do you think it was important to change the characteristics of Lothar instead of just making a new original character, like with Jungle Action's introduction to Black Panther? In this part, we're going to be discussing changing the characteristics of original characters. When thinking about original characters we know and love, it can be a major problem to change their race or gender or anything about their characteristics. This is because we bond with them, we've we begin to love them, we grow attached to them. So when you change them, it's like it's like an emotional thing that happens inside, like, huh?
What I used to do is I always used to refer to superheroes that I've come across as Black Batman or Black Superman or Black Spider-Man. Now, what Shamika said to me one day, she said, maybe you shouldn't do that because he isn't the Black Batman. In this case, I'm talking about a character called The Signal. He's got his own name, he's got his own story. So you won't be doing the character justice. So when Shamika said that, I thought about it and I said, you know what, I think that's right. I think that's the right way to look at it. Because what happens is, if we take an example like Iron Man, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, they have made a black version of Iron Man who is like a young girl, all right? But the argument against something like that is you miss out on having a new character.
Yeah, she could be somebody in her own right.
Yeah.
She can't be Iron Man because she's not a man.
Yeah. Not even that she's not a man. Like, she could still be Iron Man. She could actually take on the mantle of Iron Man. Yeah. They could even call her Iron Girl. But the fact being, she's there and everything that the whole reason of her existence is because of Iron Man.
Yeah, and everything that we have grown to know and love. If you're a comics fan, or because you have people who watch movies and you have comic fans who like love everything about comics. Everything they've grown to know and love has been broken down. Yeah. So it's like in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, there was a character named Aunt Viv. Now all of a sudden in a particular season, Aunt Viv changed. So you had Aunt Viv who was like brown skin like me and Issa, and then you had a new Aunt Viv that was just another black lady, but she was fairer skin. And it was like, hold on, where's the first Aunt Viv? It took a while to get used to the new Aunt Viv because you'd grown and loved the first Aunt Viv. And I know I keep saying Aunt Viv, but that's how it was. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's a really good point, yeah. Now, but if we bring it back to superheroes, just so I can explain what's in my head.
Yeah, sorry, I went off.
That's all right. Now, this character I told you about, who I used to say Black Batman, yeah, he's actually called Duke Thomas and he's called The Signal. He was just trained by Batman and his outfit has a similar look, okay? So he's got his own powers, he's got his own storyline, so...
And he works alongside Batman, so Bruce Wayne is Batman in the night and The Signal is Batman in the day. But he's not Batman, he can't be Batman because Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Exactly.
So he is The Signal, they work alongside each other and The Signal has got strength in his own right.
That's it. That is only talking about race. Now imagine if we were to talk about gender or any other orientation that the character has. Now the race of a superhero is actually very important. And the way I look at it is, imagine if all of a sudden they made Black Panther white or Asian or Russian or whatever. It
wouldn't make sense.
It wouldn't.
It just wouldn't make sense.
And I just think, how would I feel about that? I would think, no, Black Panther is black. I've got a connection with him. So although it's about storylines and what they do and things you can learn from the story, their race is part of it.
And in an ideal world, it wouldn't be, because we are technically just all one human race. But because of the social construct and the way the world that we live in is set up, race is a part of everything. You know, in history, there's race, there's tension on. Do you know what I mean? So that's why it is so important sometimes to some to hold. If you have a race that's close to your heart, that's not usually, you never seen them represented usually, and you see them, to take that away is like, it can be devastating. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that might sound dramatic. It is over dramatic that I'm saying, but that is actually what happens.
That is, and you have to look at history. History is real, okay? History happened, it's documented to a certain degree. I'm
Yeah.
not going to say that it's documented
Well, it's
100%.
No,
but
yeah.
history happened.
Yeah.
Things happened, you know. Certain races went through certain issues. So, because of things like that, when I was growing up, I didn't see a lot of black characters on television. When I used to watch TV, on the weekend I got to watch TV a lot. They didn't have streaming and stuff. A lot of the characters that I saw were not my colour. So when I saw characters that were my colour, I had a special connection to them.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable.
Yeah, because when you see those characters, you believe that you can do it. I can do it. Even if it's just a fictional character, it doesn't matter. It opens up pathways in your brain that makes you think, oh, well, they have special powers, I can have special powers too. And that doesn't mean special powers, like a special power can be just being able to listen to somebody. A special power can be just being there to help a friend in need, or just being able to tell if somebody says that they're not okay, just being able to tell that they're okay and just, know how to deal with the situation. That's in everyday life. All of us have gifts and all of us have those superpowers that are not, we don't call them superpowers, but they actually are.
Now the fact remains that if there was a character that was black that I really liked and they changed to another race, I would want to know why they did that thing. I don't know if, I think I'll be upset. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it's just honest.
It's just how you feel.
Just how I feel.
Can't help it.
Yeah? And then you could also even think, what does someone's race have to do with their superpowers? A lot of the time, it doesn't have anything to do with them.
It doesn't. Like we said before, it's just the social construct of the world that we live in. That's all race is.
Yeah. And we have to remember, the character was made a certain way by a certain person, and we can't go back in time and change that inception. It's already been done. And people that create things, they use their own past experiences, images, things that they like, things that they've gone through. They use all of that stuff to make these characters. So who are we to come and take it away?
Yeah, but realistically, they don't only just use their own past experiences, because what they did during slavery, how they portrayed black people, that's not in their past experiences. That's just how they decided to treat people and see people. You know what I mean? But they have their own image and the way they see things.
Yeah. I think what I mean more is everyone has, there's no excuse, yeah? Everyone has an option of how, if they get to create something, of what they get to put down. If there's something that they don't like, then they don't have to create it. Like, you're completely right. So even back when there was like mass slavery with black people, Shamika's absolutely right. Yeah. They showed people a certain way, but they could have not done that. But at the end of the day, they did.
Yeah.
Because they decided to be part of what was happening. And then they decided to create things to keep that going. So, that's history.
And like 90% of the time, when we create an image, like all of us, all of you guys, if you decide to draw or something that you like to do, you usually create something in the image of yourself or people around you. Do you know what I mean? If I do pictures, I draw pictures of brown people because I'm brown. And if you're white, then you probably draw pictures of white people because you're white. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You draw things in the image of yourself or the people around you.
Yeah. So, thinking about it, and I've spent time sitting there thinking about it, I think what's really needed is diversity across the whole industry.
Most definitely.
Yeah, from whoever owns the companies all the way down to the illustrator. So that no one's being held back because of their race or because of their gender or their orientation, and everyone gets to create what they want to create
without boundaries. Yeah.
So I'm still on the fence. I change. I go back and forth because I'm human and there's not a right or wrong answer.
There isn't. It's just our opinion.
Alright guys, so we've got the next question. So what I want you to tell us is what do you think could be problematic about changing the race, gender or orientation of a comic book character? Tell us what you think. Alright guys, now that we're done with the introduction, talking about the history and all those other subjects, let's get down to talking about some untapped superheroes. So guys, did you know that there's a Superman called Calvin Ellis who is black? It's also funny because Calvin Ellis is closer to Superman's real name, Kal-El, than the words Clark Kent. There's also a Spider-Man who is black and a superhero that shares the same genes as Captain America called Josiah X, as well as someone that works with Batman but in the daytime called the Signal. Well, all these people exist and they have really interesting characteristics and some of them work alongside the originals we already know. So, we're going to speak more about Josiah X and Superman, but first, let's tell you about the Signal and Spider-Man. And with this Spider-Man, I'm pretty sure you all know who that is. His name is Miles Morales. 2018's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was a massive hit in cinemas. It made over $370 million worldwide from a budget of about $90 million. And that's really good for an animated film that's not a sequel. It also gave the Miles Morales comics a huge surge in sales. Now, that's someone who a lot of us will just know in general anyway, but there's someone else called the Signal and his real name is Duke Thomas. He trained under Batman for a while and is also known as the Batman of the Day. Plus, he's a metahuman. So, let's talk about his powers. Well, Duke has photokinetic vision. That allows him to take in light through his eyes and manipulate the way he processes it. He also has something called retrocognition. He can look back at the history of light in a room and see a few minutes of what happened before by looking at the ghosts of the light that hit the objects in the room. And another massive superpower he has is precognition, where he uses his powers to not only see where the light's been, he can also see where the light will be, which basically means he can glimpse into the future. It gives him an edge in combat and it allows him to react faster in attacks and even catch projectiles in some cases. As well as all of that, he knows advanced hand-to-hand combat and he has indomitable will, which basically means he never gives up.
So now we're going to get into talking about what we spend a lot of time talking about at our house. Superheroes, their powers, their backstory and their ethos. Time to get into the nitty gritty. Now we have 4 superheroes that we really want to talk about with you guys as we believe they are special. Take note that this is not a complete breakdown of each character but an overview of them, taking note of what they've done in their own comic runs.
Alright Shamika, so who are we going to talk about next? I know she's your favourite.
She was my favourite but she's not anymore because I've read so many others since then, but she's up there. And the person we're talking about is Shuri. Shuri's a technologist. She's a young girl who, despite her brother being the centre of the whole kingdom, has carved out her own path. She loves to create technologies that will help her people. She made the Black Panther suit, she made automobiles, she made aircrafts and numerous other things. And she feels like that is her destiny. She has actually been Black Panther before, but in that role she died and went to her ancestors. When she went to her ancestors now, she gained her own powers in her own right. And the powers that she gained was the memories of her ancestors and the powers that her ancestors had. So she's got multiple powers because who knows how many ancestors that are actually down there. So when she's come back now, she's come back as herself, Shuri, in her own right with her newfound powers. Now something happened, and the aircraft that she built, she sent her brother and her friend into space to do some sort of mission.
By the way, her brother's Black Panther.
But they didn't come back for some reason, and she was pushed by the wise woman in the village to be Black Panther again, which she didn't really want to be Black Panther because she's now got her own powers. She likes to do her technologies, but she can fly. Do you know what I mean? She don't want to be Black Panther. She wants to be Shuri, which is what we should all really do. That we should seek to be our own person and not follow anybody else. We all have to face that when our parents want us to be a certain thing, but in our hearts we feel that we should be something else. But sometimes we actually have to do what makes our parents proud, even though that might be the wrong decision. But further on in the story, she teamed up with Miles Morales and Miss Marvel, and whilst doing so helped a young boy who's a genius in technology. This boy's dad was poor, and when he fell on hard times, he robbed a bank to try and help his family, which is obviously not a good thing to do, but he robbed a bank and he got sent to prison. Although he did wrong, she saw his true heart, and after he spent his time in juvenile prison, she vowed to help him and his mom. So do you guys relate to any of the themes that we've just talked about? What about the situation that the boy was in? Can you guys relate? Like having issues with where you see your parents or somebody around you struggling and you just want to try and do anything you can do to help them? Or can you relate to Shuri? Just seeing somebody that you know they're in a bad position, but you know that they didn't mean to get themselves into that position and they didn't even do it of themselves. They just did all they knew how to do. Write your answer in the next box.
Alright guys, so next we're going to talk about Josiah X. He's got a very interesting story, so let's get into it. He came to Earth via technology. He was born to a surrogate mother, and he was planted in his mother by scientists. He was one of many attempts to recreate Captain America. Since his father, he was the first one that survived and kept his powers. The woman that gave birth to him knew the scientists were testing her, and she took him to his biological mum. The biological mum said, "Why did you bring him here and brought him elsewhere to be raised?" This is similar to the story of Moses. His sister followed him to where he was left to ensure his survival, and he was brought up in a nunnery. As he grew, he discovered he had powers. He's community focused and doesn't use his powers until it's absolutely necessary. Alright guys, so Josiah X is part of a series of comics called The Crew. It's really good. We loved reading it and you should check it out as well. Here comes the next question. Alright guys, so what's your superpower? Josiah X only used his when it was absolutely necessary to avoid detection. What's the superpower you'd pull out when the going gets tough?
Okay guys, now on to someone that we all know and love. Issa, take it away.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Superman, but this is a Superman who is black, and there's actually 3 different versions I'm going to tell you about. Version number 1, he is called Calvin Ellis. He's the Superman of Earth 23 in the DC comic universe. He is the President of America and spent his time between being the President and being Superman. He operates in an alternate universe, and he was created by DC artists based on Barack Obama. You will find him in a series called The Multiverse, and he gets up to all of these adventures with other alternate superheroes. So it's really cool. Now, the next version of Superman I want to tell you about is called Val Zod. Okay, he operates in Earth 2, saving the world, and he's also clever enough to build a bat suit from scratch. Okay, far superior than the one built by Batman himself. One of his quotes is, "With this much power, there is no reason for me to use violence ever." He's definitely a pacifist, and that's what I really like about him. And the other thing I really like about this Superman in particular is how clever he is. Because Superman's not really shown to be that clever in any of the versions. Clark Kent, Calvin Ellis, so this one's really clever. And then we have one that basically just makes me laugh, and it's called Sunshine Superman. You'll see a picture of him and you know why it makes me laugh. If you want to find out about him, he's in a comic series called Animal Man, Volume 1, Issue 23, and it's just hilarious. Yeah? Everyone knows about Superman. He is most probably the most well-known superhero ever. Alright guys, so time for the next question. Now, Calvin Ellis is Superman as well as being the President of America. That is a lot of work that he has to do. What we want to know is there anyone around you that you see, whether it's teachers, family members, community workers, who's doing something that shows you that they're a superhero? So tell us a little bit about them and who they are. Alright, so next is, now I think I'm going to get this right, Shamika's favourite superhero. But superhero? I'll let Shamika tell you about it.
Yeah, so this one, I really enjoyed the comics, and there's, 50 issues. It is Moon Girl. Moon Girl is 9 years old. 9 years old. But she is the smartest comic character. She's the smartest. She's got 100% intelligence. That's not a power. It's naturally just a normal person with 100. She's just very intelligent. She's really into engineering. She has a gene that was created by the Kree. They're a race of aliens, and they created this gene that will turn a human into an inhuman. And an inhuman could be described as something like the Hulk. She is very afraid, so what she's trying to do is find a way to cure this so that nobody with that gene has to be inhuman. You know, she's very smart. She feels like nobody really notices how smart she is and what she can do. She feels that they feel she's just a 9-year-old girl and she needs protecting. It's a bit like what we was talking about earlier on, when we talk about our parents and our people around us have something that they think that you are, but you always instinctively inside yourself know, well, sometimes you know what you are meant to do, and she just knows she can do a lot more than what everybody else thinks she can as a 9-year-old girl. I can't even say anymore because I don't want to spoil it. I love it. I love it. And it's really interesting where the story goes. And there's other characters involved. It's just great. So that I would urge you guys to look at that comic, because that's my favourite. But you should look at all of them. Okay guys, so it's time for the question. Moon Girl is the smartest girl in the Marvel universe. So if you was the smartest person in the universe, or in our universe, or Earth, what would you use your power for? What would you do? Okay guys, so that is it for this presentation. I hope you enjoyed. Myself and Issa are not experts at comic, we just love comics. There's nothing that we've said in here that is factual, it's just all based on our own opinion. I would urge you guys to go and read some comics. You will love it. you will love the world of comics. And you might have something that you can counter us with, or you would disagree or agree on. So I'll just implore you guys to go and check out some comics and enjoy.
Maybe there's a question you like to ask us, or there's a suggestion that you have. Maybe you would like to know more about a certain character that we've discussed, or a storyline, or you have questions for us. The thing that we're trying to say is we can do more. We can do more things if it's something that you like to do. So in the very last question or answer box, I would like you to put any suggestions or what you would like to do next. And then we can look at getting that done. All right?
Thank you very much, Harris Purley.
I had a great time talking about comics. We had a great time making this presentation, didn't we, Shamika? And we look forward to getting your questions. We really look forward to it. We look forward to your suggestions.
Oh yeah, and one more thing. We will be doing a feedback video to all your questions. So make sure you get some good questions in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't wait for that. So.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.